There you go. Okay, everyone, welcome to the steering committee meeting. We only have 9 people on right now, so I imagine other people will be joining us. But we'll go ahead and get started. I was just listening to Susan Sweeney ask Councilwoman Sawyer about a meeting on 7th Avenue. I'm not aware of that, so since we're going to dive right into council member updates, maybe you can talk about what that was, what prompted it, where it was held, how many people, and what the result was. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, can I just say it's after July 17th, so I'm now officially your
and congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to working with you guys, and really appreciate all of your support. And we have known each other for a long time. I've been on this committee for 4 years, but on the other side of Colorado. So I'm really looking forward to working with you all. And so thanks for welcoming me. I appreciate it. There's a mayoral transition going on and things are a little crazy around the city right now. And there's, not a lot of clarity on a couple of things that I need some clarity on. So, we will get there. This is just, we're on day, 9, I think at this point, 8. And it's going to be fine. Business as usual is moving forward in the city, but there's also there's also this like incredible air of anticipation and excitement and new, but there is also a lot of gaps in hiring and things like that need to get caught up on before we can really move forward. So stay tuned for more information on all of that. I will tell you, the mayor's office has asked council members to join them in meeting with each of the communities, each of the statistical neighborhoods throughout the city. And all of the dates that they have provided me, I have a conflict with for one reason or another, or they have a conflict with for one reason or another. So just be aware. I can't be there possibly. I believe our at-large council members are going to help fill in so that there is at least a council member there to hear feedback from residents and questions from residents. But I apologize. The scheduling is just crazy. They're like, in the next 45 days, we need you to do 8 meetings with all of your statistical neighborhoods. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Well, I have not heard about it yet. So,
yeah, I believe they will be doing outreach to the neighborhoods. I guess they sent an email to RNOs. It was a little bit of a weird email. It looked like maybe it was a draft that accidentally got sent out to people. So we forwarded that to all of our neighborhood organizations and just said, like, we don't know what this is, but just FYI, it's not spam, it's really happening. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think, just one of those kind of mayoral transition things that
we did get that one. And that was about engaging all of the RNO leaders as a part of the discussion on the homelessness. And Linda Barker went to that. And if you would like, I would love to have her give you a summary of it. Would that be helpful?
It would be wonderful. I would love that.
Okay, Linda, are you okay to?
Sure.
There you go.
Be glad to. Same with Amanda. I'm watching the storm out the window, so it's so exciting to cool off. So attended on behalf of Cherry Creek North. There were probably 50 or 60 people in the group representing the registered neighborhood organizations. The mayor started off by doing kind of an overview, a general overview of his plan, and then spent most of the time really talking to the audience and answering their questions. Most of it very proactive, thanking him for involving the neighborhoods, wanting to know what it looked like moving forward. He went kind of through his whole plan, which I'm sure everybody has seen posted. And he really encouraged people to reach out to him. And so he had several people there from kind of the downtown city center area, which is hugely impacted by the homeless. So he really spent some time talking to them about how they're going to do the town halls and the reach out. So I think people left there. In fact, one gentleman said to him, I've been contacting the city center for 26 years, and this is the first time I've ever talked to a mayor that really seemed to listen. So he really did, and he's good at that, to really field questions and comments. And there were some really tough questions, rightly so, with homeless, but he welcomed them, and his whole team was there. So he introduced his team and made sure that everybody that attended would get a follow-up with all of his team members and their emails so that they were accessible at any time. So the meeting lasted, I think, 45 minutes, and then he was on to meet a group of unhoused people. So he had a full day.
And Linda, can you, when you reported this to our board, you talked about his whole day being filled with this topic.
Yep. He had met, I think, through 6 different groups. And there was a couple of council members even in the group we did. So he met with business, he met with construction, he met with service providers, he met with neighborhood associations, he met with the unhoused. So throughout the day, he started at 10 a.m. and I think had a meeting every hour. And his last meeting was at 6 and he got done at 7:30.
Wow. Well, that's great. I'm really glad to hear it. And like I said, they are trying to set up a meeting with every neighborhood association. So, you know, you guys, all the neighborhood associations should get an email, and it will be, I think, like a Cherry Creek statistical neighborhood meeting. So it would include, you know, Cherry Creek East and Cherry Creek North. And I believe the bid, I gave them your address as well. And so we'll see, you know, we'll see how it goes, but I probably won't be there. And that's because my calendar's crazy right now.
Do you know if it's supposed to be in person?
Yes,
or...
it's my understanding that these will be in person.
Okay. Because
they also asked us for locations, like suggestions on locations. And I said, you know, I don't know. That would be sort of dependent. And they were like, we could even do a coffee shop. And I said, well, I don't think the coffee shop is going to be big enough
right.
for the group of people who are going to come from some of my neighborhoods. I represent the largest active voting district in the state of Colorado. And our residents are really engaged, and rightfully so. So I don't know. We will see how it goes, but they are working to set those up with 78 of them in all the statistical neighborhoods, and I'll be there if I can. I need some answers. I'm not going to stand up and legitimize a plan I know nothing about. And right now, I don't know enough about this plan to be willing to stand up in front of my residents and make it legitimate. So you know, between those two issues, between the calendar and my concerns, we've got a little ways to go on this, but I would just keep your eyes peeled for an email from the mayor's office, because they are trying to set that up and really work to see if we can get, you know, a date, time, and location hardened to get out to you guys and have conversations with you. So the country club conversation, since that's a different statistical neighborhood, would be different theoretically than the, you know, Cherry Creek one, then the Hilltop one, then, you know, et cetera. But I don't know. The mayor's staff is setting that up. I will be there if I can to listen. But like I said, I have a lot of questions I need to get answered before I'm going to jump on board with this plan.
Okay. And as you know, I mean, Cherry Creek North and Cherry Creek East play very well together. So, you know, I'll coordinate, and I know that Bill and Michael are on the phone, so or on the Zoom. So we'll coordinate, because, you know, we can always take over. I agree with you. You are so spot on, because people will come out to meet the mayor, and they will show up. So we can always get Bromwell if we know ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think that's a great venue for it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the largest one. I mean, Young Americans Bank is another option. Not always big enough, not always as easy. Daniel's Fund is another, but I don't think that will be big enough. So, but thank you for letting us know, and we'll get on that right now and at least start noodling for this statistical neighborhood and see if we can get something that will work that way. And of course, you'll always be in the loop. But do you mind going ahead and talking about the 7th Avenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So updates from our office. We had a meeting with 7th Avenue residents. It was last Thursday afternoon at 3:30. It's the full meeting is published on our Facebook page, so you can go back and watch it if you didn't get a chance to attend. It's about an hour and 10 and 15 minutes long. We had over 200 attendees at one point, and we had, I don't know, Logan, can you remember the number of questions? The number of unanswered, like duplicate questions was 187.
It was 300 something. I can pull it up if you're interested.
Yeah, it was a lot of questions. And it was related to the construction of the bike lane on 7th Avenue that sort of culminates at 7th and Williams with the design that is a little bit wonky. Dottie was super open to feedback. They wanted really to hear from community members who use the bike lane about what works, what doesn't work, what people would like to see. And at the end, you know, I asked, are you going to take this out? And they said no. And I said, okay, are you willing to, you know, have a conversation about maybe changing it to make it a little bit more visually attractive and welcoming? And they said yes. So, you know, with safety being their top priority, they are not going to remove something that they put in, but they are willing to take a look and see if there's, you know, some sort of compromise here. So we're waiting to hear back from them on what that might be, but that's sort of where we left it with the community. And I think it was important for Dottie to hear from our residents. I just moderated. I mean, I don't know that much about, you know, Dottie's engineering specifics. But you know, it was a good, I think, way to get the community an opportunity for Dottie to hear their concerns about the lack of communication, about the lack of discussion. You know, unfortunately, it's kind of one of those situations where, because I'm just taking over this area, I don't know the historical kind of background of what happened. But I think it was a good, solid opportunity. And we also sent out a newsletter afterwards that had a link to the video on our social media, all of the questions listed out, the website for the project website for the project, so people could go and take a look at it. What else was there? There was one other thing, Logan. What am I forgetting?
I think that's everything.
There was one other thing. I can't remember. But anyway, we will post that on our website, and we are happy to, you know, share that with anyone. Everything we do is public and as it should be. So we try and make it as easy as possible. We keep getting all these core requests anyway, to which we're like, why? It's why pay the money? It's all we are giving this all to you. Like, we feel very strongly that we work for you and our residents deserve this information. You don't have to core us for it. Just ask. But there were so many people who signed up. Originally, we had planned on doing it as like in a group meeting like this, and we ended up having to change it to a webinar just because there were so many people who signed up for it. So it is a hot button issue. We are waiting for a response from Dottie on what changes might be made. They heard the community on the concerns that they had. So that was kind of a wrap up of the 7th Avenue meeting. I think there are a lot of residents who would like it to disappear altogether, and it's not going to. But I do think that Dottie understands that there are some ways that they can make the design better and safer and more intuitive. And, you know, that's a good step forward, I think.
So just a note about that, we at Cherry Creek North, our newsletter will be coming out soon, and I'll send you a copy of it, as I always try to do. We did a little article about, you know, bikes and scooters and, you know, the equivalent of planes, trains, and automobiles, and who has the right of way, just some summary, because people don't know. And in our neighborhood, we have people on bikes and scooters and skateboards and going all over the place on sidewalks in the street. You know, and so just understanding what the rules are was important. So at our meeting, we will have our general residence meeting on the 15th at 7 o'clock at
15th of
Cromwell
August?
School. Yes,
Okay.
the 15th of August on a Tuesday night. We have quarterly meetings, and Amanda, I'll work with you to make sure all of these are on your calendar. So at
Yep.
least you know.
I've got that one on my calendar, 7 o'clock.
Okay, good, good.
It's there. I was
and-
just checking.
And we do have Dottie coming to talk to us about that. We are really trying to understand, and Stuart has been a part of this too, as a part of Denver Moves and Richard, discussing, you know, all of these different elements. And of course, bike lanes being this explosion around the city as one element. But what we understood from Dottie was that those white poles are temporary. We don't know when they're going to come down, but eventually those will be curbed, protected areas.
That's
So,
right. But I will
um,
tell you, Lou, that if the city has the choice between adding traffic calming measures in another location that needs them, or building in, you know, permanent cemented in traffic calming measures, they're going to choose to add more.
It's still supposed to be temporary. So the question is,
Yeah.
when is that budget, you know, going to allow for some of these things to be done? And what are the other resources? Because you and I have talked about this before, but and Stuart would know, but maybe he can stick it in the chat. The connected bike lane or the bike route that connects the parks was one other idea. We said, well, if these can connect the parks, they have a different funding source, a different resource to make that easier. Could that be a part of the solution? But I don't know.
It's
Stuart,
a great question. And yeah, Stuart might have some thoughts on that as well. I will just say, Lou, that because we are waiting for a new executive director of Dottie, you know, at this point, a strategic question like that when it comes to budget allocation, and there's a lot of different funding streams within the city and county of Denver. And so, you know, if it's attached to Vision Zero, maybe it comes from a grant, or maybe it comes from some other source, right? So funding is a tough one that requires an executive director to be working with the mayor to make specific strategy decisions and policy decisions. And that's one of those things that I promise we will get there. We are not there yet.
right. Stuart, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Really, the budget is extremely tight right now. The city is considering going out to the voters in 2 to 3 years for a request for funding that would cover some of the items. I don't know about these polls, but it certainly would be about future BRT and other things that may come forward. There's also a lot of federal money, and I don't want to criticize Dottie, but I think there's more opportunity than we're paying attention to with all the federal funding. And I really look forward to getting an engaged head of Dottie, who's going to look at these opportunities and expand them and do good things. Right now, it's a tight budget, a young staff, overcommitted staff, and things just aren't going the way I'd like them to.
As a biker, Stuart, have you ridden through that area? Because I've walked it several times and took a lot of pictures, and it's hard to know where to go. I mean,
the one
even
at
on
7th,
foot.
the one at 7th.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I go through that all the time because that's my route. I go down Williams. Yeah, it was at first a little confusing, especially on 7th itself. When you turn, I couldn't tell if cars were allowed or not allowed. Equally, if any of you have been up to like 14th and Franklin, that is a very confusing intersection to me as well. If you've ever seen it, I don't know if you're allowed to turn left. It doesn't look like you can, but I see cars using it. So anyway, those are just the ones I experience. I know you all are seeing them around the city. The idea is that when they go to redo something in that area, that's when they'll be pouring the concrete to create a barrier separation and not just these fiberglass sticks or whatever they are.
Well, paint would really help,
Mhm.
adding the paint in and saying, no left turn or whatever, or just to make it more clear, because you're right. I mean, everyone has to get used to it, but if you're new to town and you're driving through that area, you think, oh, I don't have no idea where to go.
Well, and what I noticed, because I scooter, right, is that because I scooter, I could technically use the bike lane. I try not to use the bike lane. I try to use the road, which means you cannot enter at 7th and Williams anymore. You have to go right and go up to 8th. But there's no crossing at 8th to get into the park. So there's a gap there that's sort of outside of it, but as a consequence of its existence now. So there's more work to be done.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, I didn't want to get too far into that, but I wanted to understand, because we've all heard about it, obviously. And walk 7th. I know Annette goes up there like every day and goes up into Little Cheeseman. And so you can't help but sort of see the confusion as people interact with those
like you can
poles.
see those bollards from space. There are so many. Like, let's be honest, you guys, there's a lot of posts there. So,
anything else, Amanda?
yeah, so a couple of other things. We finished up our traffic study in Lowry and are kind of looking at our next year's schedule for what we want to do with a traffic study there. We were really hoping to do, and Bill, this will be important for you. We're really hoping to do Bayard between Steele and Colorado Boulevard. But it looks like they have determined, wastewater has decided to fund that branch project on Ellsworth. And if they do that, it will mess up the traffic patterns. So then we can't do a traffic study while that work is being done. So I'm still waiting to kind of see what happens with the budget to make the determination of whether we're going to be able to do that next year or not. And it really depends. It is all contingent on this wastewater storm drain, branch off plan that they're talking about doing. So stay tuned on that. And then we are going out to the Hale neighborhood. So that's part of Mayfair, the western half of Mayfair, and Bellevue, Hale, 9th and Colorado, that area, to talk about whether the community would like us to rezone to allow for ADUs on the single family properties in that location. So we'll see. We're going to start that process in the fall, and then budget season is coming, and I think it's going to be an interesting budget season. And so everything, like I said, we're getting there. Everything is just kind of on hold until we really get this mayoral administration moving forward, and we get some appointees in there and some executive heads and things like that who can really start making the decision-making process happen inside the agencies. I think they've gotten a lot of feedback from council members on which agencies we would like to see new leadership in, and I would say CPD is probably the biggest one from all of us. I don't know any council member who wants that to continue the way it is happening right now. So stay tuned. There are, I think, a couple of announcements coming in the next week or so. And in the meantime, if you're not signed up for our newsletter, please sign up for our newsletter. We try and put as much good information in there as we can. We are asking for briefings from all of the agencies and the special agencies like the library on all of the properties that are in Cherry Creek and Country Club and projects that are happening there, so that we can get up to speed on what's going on. We don't know what we don't know, so we need to know that kind of stuff, but we always try and share it with our residents in the newsletter. And then we are kicking around the idea, and I'd love your feedback on this, of whether it would be valuable to do some sort of like D5 projects night where we get all of the different agencies, Parks and Rec and Dottie and kind of wastewater and all of the different repaving and all of the different projects that are happening around District 5 to kind of get a resource fair together, maybe at the GW High School gym or something like that. We're thinking maybe January or February would be the right time to do that, because it's going to take a few months to pull all that info together. But I'm a little bit trying to use it to light a fire under the agencies to get organized for that, and also as an opportunity for our residents to really understand and see, here are all the city projects within this map area, and if you have questions about it, go talk to this person here or these people here or whatever. So do you think something like that would be valuable and useful for the community?
I just think you're right now, and this is just my sense, I'd love to hear others, but but you are right when you first said it is the largest voting block, and they're just such, there are differences. And this Cherry Creek Steering Committee, with all of the neighborhoods represented, has probably a different take. And so I'm wondering if it should be broken down a little bit because getting those people together is really important, but it's what's happening way over on the eastern part of District 5 is very different than what's happening in Cherry Creek.
Yeah, for sure. For
other
sure.
thoughts?
It's a good point.
I mean, it'd be wonderful to be able to host something like that as a part of the steering committee as well. So, but I'm happy to noodle it. Anybody else have any thoughts about it? Please chime in.
I'd love to hear feedback from everybody. I'm kicking around ideas to try and see what we can do. I also think it helps with accountability, because once a city agency comes and presents to the residents on something that's happening, it tends to happen where maybe otherwise it might get paused for a year or something like that. So, if there are no thoughts right now, that's fine. Just presenting the ideas, maybe this is something we should consider. And so keep me posted on that. And then the other thing that we are looking into, so many people don't know, but we have an extraordinary cultural asset in District 5. We have something called an Eru, and it is an actual physical rope that is blessed by the rabbis, and it goes around essentially the borders of District 5. It doesn't go all the way over to Cherry Creek, stops at Colorado Boulevard. You can look it up online. There's an organization that maintains it. It allows for our Orthodox Jewish community to use wheels on Saturdays when they're not allowed to otherwise. It is I think it is like one of the most special things about District 5. And it's not just the Orthodox community. We have a very long Jewish history in District 5. And so I would like to, I don't know, create a cultural district, I don't think a historic district, because we don't want to mess with people's property rights, but I'm starting to do some research and think about that as well, and talk to some of the community stakeholders. I'd like to do a community process over the next couple of years, where maybe we create something that really honors this extraordinary heritage in Denver. And as the cost of living is going up and families are leaving, I don't want this incredible culture to leave too, even if it just really, is a kind of a cultural or historic district or something like that. So I've got a lot of work to do on my end to figure out and wrap my mind around what the possibilities are. And then, we'd like to go out to the community and have a conversation about whether this is even something people would like, but it's something that I'm kicking around in my head as something that I think would be really amazing and honor, something extraordinary in East Denver that not that many people know about.
Is it mostly just Hilltop? Because I think I heard about that before. Does
No,
it go? So it goes
all the way from Colfax to Cherry Creek, the Cherry Creek path. And then it goes from Colorado Boulevard all the way to the Aurora border, pretty much. There are some kind of carve out pieces of it, but it's big, and it covers a lot of the sort of old District 5. So, but yeah, it would be a big landmass that it would cover.
Oh, very cool. Thank you for educating us about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know enough about it yet, but stay tuned for more. So that's updates on what's going on and what we're kicking around. Logan, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think that covers pretty much everything.
Well, we are so happy to have you both as our persons at the steering committee, and Amanda as our councilwoman. we'll really look forward to working with you, and you'll be hearing a lot from us, I'm sure. So for better, for worse, right? For richer, for poor. You
For
got
better.
us.
That's my
Right.
job. And, I do this because I love our neighborhoods and I love our community, and I want to make sure that our residents know what's going on. And the best and most helpful way to do that is in partnership with registered neighborhood organizations and with, our business organizations and all of those kinds of things. So, oh, I did forget one thing. So we asked the police department to do a data study where they looked at the different kinds of crime, property crime and person crime, and overlaid it with a map of each statistical neighborhood. So the purpose of trying to do this was to look and see, are there businesses that are problem businesses, or are there locations where if we added a light pole, it might make sense. I'll give you a really great example. In the Hale statistical neighborhood, the vast majority of the crime that occurs in the parking lot of Rose Hospital. So, and we know that because we've seen the map, right? So that's why we asked for it. We have one for each statistical neighborhood in District 5. We're going to be sharing them with each of the neighborhood organizations. And we'll share one. I think, Nick, if you did not, and Richard did not already get it, we are planning to send it to you guys as well. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
I'm saying we have it.
Great.
Yep.
So our purpose in doing this is to really see, are there businesses we can go to and talk about, the problems they're having and see if we can partner with them better? Are there locations where we can make a request of Excel Energy to add lighting, because we know lighting deters crime, all of those different kinds of things. So keep your eyes peeled for it. There's one for each statistical neighborhood. We just got them, so it's going to take a couple days to get them all out to everyone. But wanted you all to know what it is when you get it and what you're looking at and why we did it, right? We always start with what problem are we trying to solve here? So, happy to talk through those with you, and we're going to talk through them with the police department as well and see if we can kind of come up with a plan of action for each neighborhood, to see if there are some ways that we can enhance community safety, just using that kind of
great. Thank you so very much. It's one of the things that our residents ask a lot about. So thank you for doing that. And as soon as we get it, of course, we'll figure out an appropriate way to make sure that gets shared. We always ask
public
Nick
information, so it's okay.
Yep. Yeah, and it's really pushing it out to people so that they can digest it, understand what the resources are. Nick usually presents at our general residence meetings for updates from time to time on safety. And that's always very much appreciated by our neighborhoods. So thank you. Thank you again. And we'll move on in the agenda. So I did hear from Jeremy. He was not able to make it this evening, but Nick is here and Richard are here. Nick, you want to give us an update on all things bid?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Thank you, Lou. The most important thing we want you to be aware of is we recently completed a complete renovation of our pedestrian lighting system in the district. I'm trying to remember how many units we have, Rich, but it was probably the most significant project that the district has taken on since the New North many, many years ago. We realized that we were having consistent outages and just unreliability as it relates to those pedestrian lights. So they are all fixed. They are all LED. We expect them to be alive and well for many, many years to come. And just a big credit to Richard for his hard work. And we had a great vendor who completed the project for us, Whitefield Electric. So you'll see a different cast of light. It's called a Kelvin, a different color of light out there. And we think it's roughly about 20% brighter than the previous lights that were out there. So take a look when you're out there after dark. Let us know what your feelings are. But we're thrilled to have that project behind us. It was a long time coming. The other thing I would have you know is we just finished a successful project or event, I should say, with 5280 magazine. We hosted their Top of the Town event on Fillmore. It was incredibly well attended. We were thrilled to be able to host them. We hope to be able to do it for many years to come. One of the things we found out is that it's very difficult to do an outdoor event for about 1,000 people that feels intimate. And we think Fillmore is just a terrific place to hold such an event. It was a great demographic for us, great food, solid entertainment, just a really lovely evening. And as strange as it may sound, we are beginning our work on the holiday, Winter Wonderland. So much more to come on that. And we're excited about where we're going. I can tell you that we are going to be the host of the Giving Machines this year. Some of you may be familiar with the Giving Machines. They are these huge vending machines that really become a destination unto themselves. And our patrons, our consumers that come into the Cherry Creek North area and go to those machines and make contributions to myriad very worthy nonprofits. Been very, very successful. We've got a great partnership on that one, and you're going to see those located right around the holiday market. So it may seem early, but yeah, Christmas in July for us. Rich, anything more to add?
Oh, I think just a call out to those giving machines is we actually worked on getting a charity in there. So Global Down Syndrome Foundation will be one of the charities that will be inside the giving machines this year. And as you know, they're just right within Cherry Creek. So it's great to have them there. Other thing is just a little update for the group. Just a reminder that do have our public safety working group, which is open to attend. And that's a great snapshot of what's going on in the Cherry Creek area and covers the entire area of the bid area and the shopping center. And that's a monthly meeting. You can find the information on our website. But in the bid area, surprisingly, we are down 10.9% in criminal statistics for 2023 compared to 2022. So we're actually seeing a decrease in criminal activity. And that really is led by theft from motor vehicle offenses decreased by 56%. So we're down 21. Larceny offenses decreased by 52%, down 13. And we're seeing an increase in burglary. We've had some business burglaries overnight, but overall crimes trending in the right direction. So just a big call out to the partnership with Denver PD and the public safety team that works for the bid. We're starting to see those results that we were looking for.
The only thing I would add is that business continues to be very robust. All you have to do literally is walk by virtually any restaurant at lunch or dinner, and you see how crowded they are. Our retail component seems to be doing well. Health and wellness. I mean, virtually every category of merchandise is performing extremely well, and our merchants are very happy with the trend, and we certainly are doing our best to help continue that success. So knock on wood, we hope that there's no recession anytime soon, and that consumers continue to see Cherry Creek as a priority place they want to visit.
One more thing, we are going to start seeing construction on Milwaukee. So the small office building project should start next month. So more to come on that, but it looks like that's when demo is going to begin.
So just to be clear, that is the building where Bad Daddy's used to be located on the east side of Milwaukee.
And I'm sorry, who was the developer of that one?
That's BMC.
BMC.
Oh, BMC. Okay. And thank you very much for that update. I don't know if you all saw in the business journal yesterday, but Pat Bro has acquired, the Bro companies have acquired the Seasons in Cherry Creek East. Huge change in ownership. So, I think that it's good to have a local owner. Red Peak Properties, I think, was involved with them before, but it's just yet another sort of stake in the ground for our local, one of our bigger developers in the Cherry Creek area. So I thought that was of interest. And Nick, thank you. I hear you on NPR now all the time. Colorado Public Radio. Cherry Creek North is now a sponsor, and the ads have been really support announcements have been really terrific. So thank you for doing that. I think
Yeah,
it's
glad you're hearing that. You know, that cohort, that demographic is just absolutely spot on for us. I've wanted to do that for quite a long time, but there's a lot of people who don't believe in terrestrial radio anymore, but I happen to be one who does, and it really is just a great market for us, and we're glad to support public radio. They do amazing work and important work.
Yep. Well, thank you for that. And I was just thrilled to hear it and feel a little bit of home every time I do. So,
Good.
so
Thanks
thank
for
you
the-
for that.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
feedback.
Ingrid, you have to unmute, Ingrid. Ingrid, you need to unmute.
Unmute.
Okay.
Nick, I live at 3rd and Milwaukee. I go out most evenings, early evenings. The international population right now, the youthful population, this is all that I'm seeing right here. Can you speak to that? Are they coming in from other areas, do you think, or are they really it seems as if they're here, right here.
Nick,
Uh-oh.
you have to unmute too.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Oh,
I can tell you that we have put a huge emphasis on our tourism marketing program.
Yeah.
To the extent that, just to give you an example, our hotels came to us with a really unique idea, and that is they decided to assess themselves a 1% room charge. They do pass it through to the customer, but we're going to be raising, considerable dollars to continue a really aggressive tourism marketing campaign. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. We are in many ways benefiting from what's happened downtown. We are a preferred destination. We are a place that people want to be. They want the amenities of Cherry Creek North. And whether it's locals or the mountain communities or international visitors, they are finding Cherry Creek in ways that they hadn't before. And we're excited about that, but we are working hard to get our message out on that. So I think what you're seeing, I'm glad to hear you're noticing that. I don't think it's accidental.
no, I didn't think it was. I was pretty sure it was planned. But it's delightful, and to see all these people discover Cherry Creek.
Yeah,
Thank you.
especially
Appreciate
now
the
that
feedback.
people are actually traveling again.
Yes.
To welcome them to this part of the city, and we see them just walking. They get Starbucks, they're staying at the Halcyon, they get Starbucks and they walk around our neighborhood and say hello, and they're just taking a morning stroll. And it is just it's lovely, because I'm sure they're wondering, how can there be this wonderful merger of all these businesses and these quiet neighborhood sidewalks, tree-lined, beautiful neighborhoods. So thank you for that comment, Ingrid. Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
Richard, we also want to thank you guys in advance. They are providing the lights for the Cherry Creek North Sip and Savor event, which is coming up in September. And we have a lot of participants. That is the one event where everything that we raise, all our net proceeds are donated to charities. So, and it's right now probably over $69,000 that we've donated to charities with that particular event. So we're very proud of that, and the team that works on that is very thankful for the bid helping out on that. So thank you for that. A couple of other announcements. Today is the last day for public comment on the below curb rules and regulations. So think Quality Italian. There were several of us who participated in a public forum on that fairly recently. I know that it's been a topic of some discussion and frankly consternation with residents who are trying to get to the post office, people who are trying to drive there to pick up their kids at Bromwell, because it's just such a busy part of the bid. So if you want to take a look at that, it is up on our website. We just sent out a blast email about it. I'm happy to forward that to anybody on the steering committee if they want to take a quick look at what's going on. The information from that forum from, I believe it was last week, it was last Tuesday, and the comments which they put into a summary memo are also available. And I think there's a portion of that would say under the new regulations, a restaurant like QI would not be able to, on that street with those conditions, repeat that space. And I know, as I've talked to Matt Joblin about it, I know it's important because they feel they need more space. But the question is, gee, how do you do that in a way that doesn't really back up and make people avoid that street altogether? So, but anyway, that is one thing. The other thing is on the 1st of August, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the old Container Store, Cherry Creek West will be having a community presentation. So I don't know if they're going to have the old fashioned put a post-it on the board like we used to do, or whether they'll have a model, but it is something open to everybody. Please push that out to your neighborhoods. Also on August 15th at the general residence meeting, Amy Cara and her team will be presenting to Cherry Creek North. So it will be really good to have people take a look at what's happening, get their questions, and then have a chance to speak to the developer team on the 15th. Those are open to all, and they are hybrid. So, and we record them and then we upload them. So you'll get that information as well.
Excuse me, Lou, what time was August 1st meeting?
I'm sorry?
What time is the August 1st meeting?
That's from 5:30 to 7:30. And it's in the old Container Store.
Yep.
Lou, one thing I want to mention, we at the bid are completely aligned with the neighborhood association on the quality Italian issue. We really are unhappy with that execution for all the reasons you've mentioned. And so we have weighed in on that as well.
Well, we really appreciate that, Nick. I know Annette has been one of the loudest voices because she actually goes to the post office. But we've, and I think I've heard Richard express that same position. So we really appreciate that because it is something that gets, we get complaints about. And I know Councilwoman Sawyer has stood with us on this too, has tried to figure out why does it get to stay there until the new rules are in effect. Yep. But, you know, at this point, I think suffice it to say that if you want to go to the website, you will see those comments because they were made, they were captured. And there is a statement in there that probably would not, most likely would not meet the requirements. So we don't expect that to be there forever. The question is, why is it still there? And I think it's because they actually need to finalize these regulations. At least this is what I've heard before. And so they're just going to let those permits expire rather than, you know, taking action to remove them. So.
And Lou, if I can just jump in on that, I will say
please.
That's exactly right. So what we were told by Dottie, and this feels like a game of telephone, what we were told by Dottie is that they were told by the city attorney's office that legally speaking, they have to treat all of the businesses the same, no matter where they're located across the city. And so because those regulations are not yet in place, they cannot remove the quality Italian structure, even though they have been told repeatedly by Dottie right-of-way enforcement to remove the structure. So it was a disconnect within Dottie itself, where right-of-way enforcement was saying, get rid of it. And the city attorney's office has told them, you cannot get rid of it. All of the below curb decks like that across the city have to be treated the same. And so hence the push to get those rules and regulations done now as soon as possible. And then they'll let everything expire, and some will be allowed to reapply and some will have to reapply and conform with the new regulations. And that is not going to be conforming with the new regulations, as I understand it.
It
Great,
got hit by a
thank
car
you.
again yesterday. So yeah, the
I'm
corner got
sorry.
hit. It got hit by a car again yesterday. So
Oh,
you know, it's back damaged on that the corner by the library. But the new regulations going through them really specifically with the city in a meeting, it's not going to be any other regulations really. So we should see it gone.
okay. Well, thank you guys for standing with us and, fighting that. We've lived through a lot. So when people know eventually it will be gone, I think you'll hear some relief throughout the neighborhood. So thank you for that. And then the other thing, I think we just want to be able to raise any other issues from the neighborhoods. This might be a short meeting. We still only have 17 participants because, as I said, a lot of people had reached out to me to say, I'm not going to be available. I wondered even whether to hold it, but I appreciate you all coming because I think this information is really valuable. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to share about their neighborhoods? Bill, please.
Thank you. Just a thought that was triggered about Amanda's thought about having city departments, have a meeting. I think you're correct in saying that, east of Colorado and west of Colorado have slightly different issues that they look at. And so a meeting that would probably be split that way. But, I'd particularly be interested in hearing about, as the city government evolves, the new council and the new mayor, what they think of, the Cherry Creek area plan. I think you've raised that yourself in regard to Cherry Creek West. And I'd like to see where they feel area plans really should fall into the decisions that are being made relative to developments, particularly in regard to building height. And then some of the broader aspects of, what is what is the city plan for, particularly for specific departments, for when we have major developments? Okay, what's the broader perspective that they're going to bring to the party? I mean, I do see some of that in the city plan. For instance, the city plan does talk about making the city more pedestrian friendly. It brings it up and says that. But it's not clear to me when a development is set up how the city is playing a role in terms of coming in and saying, well, it's a part of our broader 2040 plan, or I've forgotten which it is, or two or three of them, to make the area more pedestrian friendly, a more bike non-car friendly. How are we going to do that in regards to this plan? And, for instance, in Cherry Creek West, Amy and team have done a great job. The developers have done a great job about talking about that within the development. But I think what gets lost in the conversation is that the development is surrounded, as we all know, by University, First, and Steel. And, how are those going to be, with the increased density, the number of people living there, how are we going to make sure that it's easy for people to migrate into Cherry Creek West and out of Cherry Creek West and across relevant neighborhoods? And some of the other things that the city always talks about, like more trees, etc. How are these going to be implemented when we talk about developments happening, or when we talk about specific developments? So we don't get lost like we have been about talking about individual developments, one development to the other, but there's some oversight, as to how these fit together and some sort of comprehensive idea as to what we want. You know, and I'm thinking of this particular area to look like, you know, in 5 or 10 years, because we're just going to see more of this high density development. You know, we're not going to see less. And, you know, now's the time, I think, to be thinking about that. And I know there are projects underway, like the Cherry Creek Moves, but I'm not sure the Cherry Creek Moves people feel like they're accountable to the neighborhood. Thoughts on that? I mean, maybe I'm off, you know, here a little bit, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, I think that's right, Bill. I think what you are identifying is some gaps that exist in our large development review process.
Yeah.
So, you know, when there is a large development like a Cherry Creek West, it is, you know, they don't just go through community planning and development and then like no one else takes a look at it. It involves a conversation with an approval by Parks and Rec. It involves a conversation with an approval by Dottie, you know, and a number of wastewater, a number of different agencies. And so the large development plan review process is how those conversations happen. The challenge with the large development review plan process is that it's done under the cover of night. Not even council is invited to those conversations. It's done strictly by the agencies. The residents are not included at all. The council office is not included at all. And part of the challenge is that then, you know, each agency is very siloed and they have their specific expertise. But then we find ourselves in a situation where, you know, if they're not going out to ask, for example, the neighborhood organization or the council office, you know, we're the ones, us on this call, right? We're the ones who know everything that is going on in the neighborhood. You know, I don't know, I haven't looked, but, you know, maybe the Sears development site is being reviewed by a different reviewer than the, you know, Cherry Creek West site, et cetera. And if those reviewers aren't talking to each other, they don't know and they don't care because it's very siloed. And so it's really us who understand the bigger picture thing. And that's, I think, a gap across the city and something that we're really wanting to work with the next director of community planning and development to have some serious conversations about how we mitigate that problem. I'm not sure that that's going to happen in time for, you know, some of the concerns that we've heard from residents when it comes to Cherry Creek West, because I believe their large development plan is substantially complete, if not fully complete at this point, because it's been going on for so long. And usually an LDR will take somewhere between a year and 18 months. And we're certainly there with Cherry Creek West. So it's a great point. I hear you loud and clear and I agree with you. The question is, how do we address it? And unfortunately, without a head of CPD, and without a head of Dottie and without a head of Parks and Rec, right? We are, you know, we're sort of stuck in a place where we're not going to be able to have those conversations yet. But I hear you and I appreciate the feedback, and I am certainly willing to, you know, move that conversation forward with the next group of leadership. We've got to get the next group of leadership first.
Well, we really need to have Dottie and CBD working on these things together. And I mean, the Denver Moves Cherry Creek team has been trying very hard to make sure that they are discussing these larger projects as a unit, because we keep talking about them. And we know that the bid and Matt Joblin and Amy have been talking a lot together about that connection, because currently there is no crossing on that west side of Clayton Lane. And that will be developed. So that also has to come into the mix. And one of the big problems is that, you know, I think there are a lot of ideas about things that we could do now, and we're going to push for some of those. But as Stuart has reported before, he doesn't think we're going to be able to get very far because they say, well, we might have BRT, we might have this, and we might have that. And the problem with that is, until you know, we got to deal with what's now, because nobody knows if that's coming. So I think you're going to get a lot of push from some of us to do something now, whether that means you change that median, whether it means that, you know, you push the developers to do this connected bikeway. Stuart, would you want to weigh in on this, or am I capturing it?
Well, there's a lot that I don't know about what Cherry Creek West is offering in the way of trip reduction. But what I've said to the city is, at least what I understand, they're undergrounding the parking. They've been asked to put in these shared roads that are completely useless. They've committed to a bidirectional bike path for one long block, which is going to be up to First from Cherry Creek Drive North. So that's going to be along Clayton. They've committed to that. They've committed to bike storage at their facility. And although I haven't run the model, I would estimate that's going to reduce maybe 2 to 3% of the single occupant driving. And if I were the city, I would expect this site to have 50% reduction in single occupant driving. It's not going to fit into the community if everybody's going to drive, or if it's going to reflect the existing mode share. I don't know what's going to be there. I know I sound rather negative, but you know, they said no to microtransit. They want to pay RTD to increase the frequency. So I went ahead last week and I called RTD. I got the two top guys who are in charge of that stuff. And I said, what's going to happen when the city gives you money? Nothing. We don't have drivers. We don't have the infrastructure. We can't do it. We cannot do it. It's not month to month about getting these drivers. It's a year to year issue, you know. So what they're really offering is BRT. And at best, that's 10 years away and way far from getting any funding. You know, federal's next on the list, and Denver's short by $85 million for their portion of that BRT. Our BRT is not going to be looked at the Spear First Leetsdale until federal is done. And I don't know what the portion of the Colorado BRT is going to ask of the city. But again, there's a real shortfall. So my question, and I, you know, Lou and Richard had to see it, was what's going to happen this year, next year, the year after? And are we going to get access to the labor pool to help our businesses with this high turnover rate that we have? And the top reason is mobility. And we just seem to not have any big investment. And I kind of blew a fuse when I heard that they were going to take part of the $600,000 to do the design for the Spear and First intersection. It got me all worked up because I went back and read my old emails, and it was clearly stated by Ashley Grace that they had $220,000 for that design, and they were going to hold it for us. So I don't mean to go off on tangents, but
well, I being naive, and you've probably already thought of this, but you know, should we invite the mayor to speak to the Cherry Creek Steering Committee at some point in time? This would be, you know, Amanda's call as well as yours, Lou. But you know, my thought there is to get in early, okay, because it's already becoming late. You know, he's like very focused on the homeless issue, and that's going to be burning up a lot of time and attention. But I think Amanda said, you know, we're one of the larger voting blocks in the state. We also generate revenue through next Cherry Creek North, the mall, and sooner than later Cherry Creek West. You know, that should mean that we should have some influence on the mayor's thinking about what's coming up next. And I'm listening, you know, particularly to you, Amanda, talking about the incredible divisiveness, or maybe divisiveness is the wrong word, but separation within the city departments. But those departments do report to the mayor, correct?
That's right.
So maybe what we should do is to try to arrange to have the mayor come speak to us and have some sort of like, so we don't waste the man's time or our time, you know, have an agenda where we go through these issues one by one. Okay, the important issues. No, I'm not talking about the this building here, or, the Pro building on 50 South Steel. But, the broader issues of, what's happening in this area.
Lou, can I jump in here?
Please,
Yeah, sure.
please, Nick.
I think there's a couple of things that come to mind here. The
Mhm.
first being, I don't know that it's realistic for us to expect a great deal of help from the city on any level. And I say that because one of the key measurements and key funnels that the city uses today when it comes to projects is their equity index. And this neighborhood falls right to the very bottom of the list in terms of equity, and we just don't measure up. And that's just a reality of how things are looked at today. My sense is that if we're going to get anything done, we're going to have to be proactive, and we're going to have to work together to create a mechanism that allows us to collectively go to the city and say, look, we've been ignored long enough. This is the third most important economic neighborhood in Denver. Only DIA and downtown exceed Cherry Creek in terms of the economic impact on the city and county of Denver. That's a message that we need to continue to pound on. But this equity issue is real. And I think at some point, and Amanda and I have had some very, very preliminary conversations around this, we're going to have to come together as a group of businesses, as neighbors, perhaps even think about creating taxing ourselves by way of a general improvement district, a landscape improvement district, a whatever special, some kind of an overlay. And then we can go to the city and say, look, we are prepared to raise millions of dollars to address these issues. City and County of Denver, Doty, CPD, whoever it happens to be, mayor, what are you going to do? And you match these dollar for dollar. And I think until we do that, I think we're going to continue to be frustrated as a group. But at some point, we're going to have to take proactive measures to get to the results we're looking for. I don't know, Amanda, you want to weigh in on any of that?
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. I don't know what the right mechanism is, right? Is it a special district? Is it a local improvement district? Is it a general improvement district? We need to have some conversations with the community, with residents, with businesses, with all of the different stakeholders. But I think you're right. The city's equity index, it may change. I don't know. That sort of depends again on what leadership decides to do, but it doesn't really matter if it changes or not. Cherry Creek's not getting, we're not going to move up on that list any. So the only thing I think that could potentially move Cherry Creek at all on that list would be changing the consideration of the location of the equity need. And by that, I mean, like when we're looking at transportation projects, for example, whether it's a federal level, a state level, they look at the origin, not the destination. And so Cherry Creek is the destination for a lot of our workers that come from Cap Hill or Baker or, wherever, Glendale. So that's the destination, not the origin. And so we can't even apply for that funding because, or grants or whatever, because we don't meet that technical requirement either. So unless that changes, or unless that view changes, and again, that's not just a city thing, that is on the federal level, that is on the state level as well. It's very difficult to find other funding mechanisms or funding streams, specifically because when we're talking about these kinds of things, they are looking at the origin point, and Cherry Creek as an origin point just does not meet the criteria that's needed. So I do agree with Nick that I think we should have a serious conversation as this body, as a starting place for creating some sort of district of some kind that would allow us to fund some of these projects, we would need to talk about what projects, we would need to talk about governance, we would need to talk about amount. It would be this is a Tabor question. If we're talking about taxing ourselves, there would have to be a vote of the people. You know, it's a very complicated legal landscape. So this is, I think, the start of a conversation, but it's a conversation we need to have. And I agree with Nick as well. We cannot just tax ourselves and let it go at that. We earn a lot of money for this city, and they cannot continue to use us as an ATM without putting something back into us. So I think, you know, matching dollar for dollar, whatever that might be, the request is, again, start of a very complicated and long conversation. But I agree 100%. And I think it's something we should start now, because if we want to, you know, put it on potentially the November 2024 ballot, which will have very high turnout because it's a presidential year, it's something we should consider and start talking about now. Stuart, I
So
see
let
your
me take Stuart and then we'll come back to this. Stuart?
Yes, I just wanted to agree with Nick. I'm totally on board with what you're saying. It's very true. And right now, you know, with the Hancock administration, it's almost as if all the money is being thrown at lower income neighborhoods to the point where we've diluted the purpose of this funding. Now, I'm not against equity, but I'll give you an example of where we're losing out. The city wants to give all the money to poor people and that's for our climate change. Okay, I get it. But when you look at low income housing, they have one parking space per 10 units, meaning there's one car. They don't want to give any money to areas that have what we call choice riders. And so Cherry Creek, we've got 8 out of 10 driving in a car, we get no money. But the folks that have 1 out of 10 driving a car get all the money. And I think that I just wanted to reinforce what Bill said, because I agree with Nick's, but I also think Bill's point about getting the mayor out here, talking to us, getting him to understand, you know, Hancock is gone. Let's start on a good footing with the new mayor. And I think we just need to be very frank about this equity issue and how it's channeling all the funds to the point where I call these all welfare programs. They're not climate change. They're not traffic reduction. They're welfare. So anyway, that's my little rant for the evening. I promise to behave.
I did hear, Stuart, that they changed the fee structure for RTD for buses and put in lower structure. So it's going to be actually, if you run all those numbers, that will be under their current budget. But again, trying to give to those people who frankly can't afford to drive, park, etc., a more reasonable fare. And, you know, I agree with that. Now, I will tell you, we've been talking about a JID on and off for years in this area. And I've always thought it was a good idea, even when I was on the Cherry Creek East Board way back when, because we have needs that are different. So one of the things that I will commit to do, it's 1/4 after, Alan, I'll get to you in 1 second, is that I will look at a couple of different things. I will reach out to the mayor. I know him somewhat. I will reach out to some people in the municipal finance groups that form and create districts to see if I could get somebody to put together some educational discussion points for us, things to think about, some of the basics. I have some things from a long time ago about what it takes for a JID, but it might be good to have some fresh eyes and some you know, updated summaries that we can bring back to this group. But I do think the fight needs to go on right now while we've got Cherry Creek West. And, you know, I, for one, am, I think the area plan is a plan that people worked on for a long time. We need to honor that plan until there's another plan. And yet we need to understand that the area plan was also done along with Blueprint Denver with the understanding that we would have infrastructure support for that expanded development. And Stuart and I have talked about trying to make sure that the rules that require a developer to identify their trip charge offset, that now is required at the time of CO and not earlier. And the reality is it should be earlier. That's something legislatively that we think could be changed. And so, Amanda, we're going to look at that and be bringing that to you to see if you could run that through, because it really needs to be a part of the upfront discussion. What are you going to build? How much square footage? What are the uses? And how are you going to offset? And if some of that means we're going to write a big check so that we can have X, Y, and Z as a part of the project, maybe that's what it means. Don't know what it means, but it's a possibility. Alan?
Well, this is a great discussion, and I couldn't agree more with everything everybody said. But I think Amanda hit the nail on the head when she mentioned the fact that all of those departments of the city that are involved with planning are leaderless. And until the mayor appoints new managers for those departments, nothing is going to happen. And remember that Hancock took 1 year to appoint a new manager of community planning and development. And in that year, nothing happened.
Whew, that's a scary thought, Alan.
We need leadership in those departments badly, and it has to happen now.
Councilwoman, do you have any anything you can say to that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you know, I have talked to the mayor about this. I have talked to I've talked to his team that is sort of going out and doing the community meetings about this. And I think there will be some movement on some of those things relatively quickly. I think, I'm not sure it was, well, let me back up. It was my opinion that they need to bring someone from outside when it comes to CPD, and not, that they need to, you know, really bring in some fresh blood, and that an executive search may take up to a year for something like that. We don't want yet another situation where the wrong person gets the job because it's easy and simple and straightforward, because we have done that repeatedly. But there is a cost to that, which is frustrating. So, you know, we'll see what he decides to do. I think that there are some positions, some appointee positions, that we should absolutely retain the people who are in those positions now. An example of that I gave to the mayor would be Phil Washington at the airport. He is doing an excellent job. The airport is a mess. That is not on him. You know, he is cleaning it up as fast as he can. And so I think we will see some movement on some of the easy ones quickly. And then, you know, it's going to be up to them to make a determination of what comes next and to do it as quickly as possible. The mayor has, legally speaking, a reasonable period of time to fill those roles. And frankly, a reasonable period of time might be a year, because an executive search for any business can take up to a year. You know, it'd be the same if we were a university. It'd be the same if we were looking for a CEO or CFO or, you know, some C-suite executive in a company. Is it easy? No. Do we want the right person for the job? Yes.
But we need an interim right now to help guide some of these larger.
And I'll tell you, it was also my recommendation to them that they get interims in immediately. They have not taken my suggestion, and there's nothing I could do about that. I tried to share it. I tried to tell them.
Well, I think these are, I mean, this has been a really good conversation, and we're coming to a close of our time. So I think what I would love to do is, please, again, I always say, share some thoughts, send me some emails. This recording will be uploaded hopefully by tomorrow. Share it, start these conversations. Nick is absolutely right. We only have the kind of, I'll use this term very loosely, but power if we work together. And our voice, that we need to make sure we know what we're asking for. And right now, I think working for so long on Denver Moves, we know a few things that we know are the bigger problems. And I'd still like to, because we still have this opportunity, the money is not spent, there's still some out there, to not lose sight of the fact that, you know, we're still holding on to that, demanding some real improvement, some plans, some commitments, because that's what we have all worked for over a year on. And so while Stuart is, I know, very disappointed in how it has been, we still need to get the most that we can and the best that we can. And we're not going to let go. I mean, this was a promise. We had the $1 million. We want to make sure something comes out of this. And we'll be meeting with them in 2 weeks, the small group again. And so we need to keep pushing in the interim for real asks that are doable. And even if they say, well, we can't do that because in 10 years we might have this, we say, you know, there is an interim here too. The interim here is going to oversee how this neighborhood develops on the larger scale of First Avenue, and we need to talk about it now. And so if they, you know, if we get something done and we make some commitments, or at least get a plan that everybody says we can talk about this, then we can start looking at the capital stack. How do we get it done? Are there federal funds? Are there, go through Dr. Cobb? Are there city funds that were committed for some of these things? Because they did make that commitment. And then if we need to really look at all those sources, I've thought a JID made sense in a lot of other ways, not just this, but we can start talking about what those benefits are so that we can take them to the community. And, you know, that would be something, chop, you got to get right on it if you want to get it on the November 24 ballot. So I will start getting some educators for us to talk about that. I'll talk to you, Amanda, about that. I will reach out to the mayor and try to get a conversation. It's might not be the easiest time to do that, but I think right now we as Nick said, you know, as the third largest economic engine for the city, we should have a voice, and we're going to make sure that we keep saying that. Look, we need a seat at this table early in the game. So anybody have anything else?
And Nick?
Yes.
This is Larry. Where does the Alliance fit into this whole scenario?
I think it's central to the discussion. You know, these are things that we've talked about. For those of you that don't know, the Alliance is kind of an amalgamation of the BID, the shopping center, the Chamber of Commerce, and, you know, basically the business leadership of Cherry Creek. You know, when we've talked about this idea, it's something that we most definitely feel is going to be necessary, but fundamentally we can't do that alone. It's going to require all of us, as I said earlier, but we have to determine what the priorities are. We've identified things as basic as enhanced public safety, restoring the creek, and of course, transportation as really our key priorities, so to speak. We have to define, you know, what does that look like? What do we want to accomplish with that? What does it cost? One thing I've come to realize is that voters will vote when they believe, first of all, when they trust the organization that's advancing the idea. And I think that I could say collectively for all of us, there's a great deal of trust among one another. But And by the way, they won't vote on things that are nebulous or unsure of. And we've seen Denver voters do that over and over again. Denver voters are smart, and Cherry Creek voters are among the smartest. So we're going to have to continue to collaborate on all these things. We're going to have to get them priced. We're going to determine, okay, what is the cost? What are the priorities? And then kind of back into it and say, okay, what does that mean for, you know, the business community, for homeowners? When you see assessed values going up, people are, you know, protesting their property tax assessments and losing, by the way.
Yeah.
So we've got to find the right balance, and that's going to take a lot of conversation in order to reach that. But we can't ignore it, and it's definitely something that we are talking amongst ourselves about, and want to continue that conversation with any interested parties in Cherry Creek.
Well, as I said, you know, this, if you do a JID, it's going to be the residents who vote that in. So educating ourselves and then taking that out to the residents. And the question would be, what are the boundaries of the JID? Is it just statistical Cherry Creek? Does it go beyond that? Those are all real questions. But we will move on with that, move forward with that, I should say, and get some real information that we can start noodling around. But we're not going to drop the ball on Denver Moves. We're still going to make our asks. We're still going to be at the table. Just because we don't have the head does not mean we can't talk about the topics and we've had a pretty good team of people who have worked with us. The problem is that we don't have CPD at the table. We only have Dottie at the table. That's a problem. So, you know, with these big projects, that's CPD, not necessarily Dottie. So we got to get the right people in the room, having the conversation, and then have some things that we can do now, some appropriate asks for now, and setting the stage for what we want to see in the future. So with that, send your thoughts, please. It's 6:29. So we'll bring it. Yes, Larry?
One thing on a lighter note, the Denver Municipal Band is going to be performing at Hilltop at the park on August 5th. Just want to call it to your attention. And,
okay, so Saturday, what time?
Well, the opening, it opens at 5 and closes at 8. We have food trucks and so forth there as well. But the actual band will start playing around 6:30. And
perfect.
So this is in lieu of the fireworks, you know, now centralized in Glendale. Not necessarily, we can't see it from the hill. So now
Right.
the municipal band was so pleased with the turnout last year, they asked if they could come back.
Well, I've heard them before. They're fun. It's terrific. Cherry Creek East has done, had the band several times. So it's lovely. And, you know, what's not to love about food trucks, right? So thank you, Larry, for bringing that to our attention.
Okay.
So, okay, everyone, 6:30. Thank you for being here. Have a great rest of the weekend or week and weekend, and we'll see you next month. But please, you know, let me know if you have any other thoughts.